Hope everyone's doing well, and welcome back to the Big Bus. Navi over here. Today I actually was editing the video and realized that I don't really have a storyline to go on. We just have a bunch of random tasks that we got done moving forward to paint, which I can now confidently say that I just bought the paint this morning. So we are going to be painting literally in the next episode. Super excited to start seeing color go on this bus and stop looking at a yellow Twinkie because it's just such a great transition. So much prep work goes into it. And speaking of prep work, I wanted to quickly just kind of go through some of the odds and ends on the bus that we've been going through over the last few weeks just to get the bus ready so that we can start painting. One of the first tasks that we've been working on over a period of time in the last few weeks has actually been painting the windows. So we're taking the windows and we're gonna make them look like this bus. So we're painting them black so that when we paint, we can get ready to reinstall them, get everything all prepped and done. And Luke actually did an amazing job and got all the bumpers and grills completely primed and ready to go. So once we paint, we can start popping all these things back in and it's gonna look different quick. I want to talk really quickly about what we're doing and why we're doing it with these windows. So the original windows, they're aluminum frames, but as you could probably see on here, they're just really dirty, really pitted. There's a lot of just dirt and dust and debris from over the years on here. So what we're doing is we got a whole bunch of steel wool and I'm just going around and quickly brushing it. You can, if you want to keep these aluminum, you can use steel wool and brush these to a shine. I previously did that on a vintage camper that I worked on with a friend of mine, Dean. But in this case, we're gonna be scrubbing them up, trying to get a bunch of the dirt off so that we can actually get them ready for priming and painting, because we're gonna make all these frames black, just like the other bus. But if you're interested, just go look up the steel wool. You can make them in different grit patterns, which is gonna be more abrasive or less abrasive, but a little bit of steel wool, and these things will clean up pretty nicely and get ready for paint. In order to paint the windows, we came down to the basement and we're hanging them from the ceiling, and one by one we're taping them off and then sanding and painting them all down here. We ran out of paper to cover the glass, so we have quite a few more right here that we got to go through, but the process has started, and over the next few days we're just going to be systematically going through here and getting them all painted and prepped and ready to get back into the school bus. So this is going to be one of those projects that just happens over time, but the fact that it has started is exciting and means we're moving forward. But since we ran out of paper, we're gonna have to move on to the next job, which is going to be back over to the bus, doing a lot more metal work and just prepping for moving forward for metal and spray foam. Now that we're back over at the bus, Luke is gonna start prepping and sanding the bumpers to kind of get them ready to get put back on. And then I'm gonna start getting these floors put back together and welded. So I gotta patch some holes and then kind of just start in the back and weld all the way forward to seal everything up. And then the floors are gonna be watertight and awesome. So definitely ready for that. Ready to get the bumpers back on. Things are moving and things are gonna start changing pretty soon. So now that the windows are painted and now we just have to wait to get the bus completely painted, then we can put the windows back in, caulk them and seal them. It's great to have that done and at least off the list. But the next thing on the list was putting these window deletes in. So I wanted to show some footage about how we did this and give some explanation of how it might be done in your school bus, just to get an idea. Now that I have my measurements written down, I have all my supplies set up right here. Sheet metal's all set up and ready to start marking. And what I'm gonna be doing is I measured out the actual rough opening of the actual windowsill that I'm gonna be deleting. Then I added 2 inches to each side of the dimensions to actually end up bending the flanges so that I essentially have an insert that can then be riveted into the sides. Actually, let me go show you real quick. Essentially, we're gonna be deleting this window out, but what I'm doing is I measured the rough opening and then I'm adding 1 inch, and I'm actually gonna bend the sheet metal so that it fits in here, and then I can rivet and secure it in through all these different locations, and then it will be flush up against the actual front edge. I can caulk from the outside, and then it will be completely waterproof. After quite a bit of hammer work and slamming, we finally got our window insert done. So we got all of our bent edges, and now, hopefully, I did the measurements right, and this should slide right into the window opening and block it out. Then we can start drilling holes and get it riveted in. So let's go see if this thing fits. Fingers crossed. Totally did that on purpose. It definitely took quite a bit of hammering, quite a bit of time, but we finally got this guy in and it is blocked out. If we look at it from the inside, you can kind of see that it's all blocked out, but essentially those flanges are now sitting on the upper ridges. So now what we can do is we can just rivet it in through the sides. You won't see any rivets or anything from the outside. And then out here, what we'll end up doing is we'll prime and paint it with the sides and then just simply caulk the edge to make sure that it's water sealed, but that piece of metal is not going anywhere once we rivet that thing in. Now I gotta do one more window because this one's also getting blocked out. Well, that's a wrap on the windows. So at this point, they're completely installed. Also super solid, but now we just gotta finish caulking this one. And then these are completely done and pretty much just need to get primed and painted. So there you go, window deletes, 2 down. Anyone want to guess what's actually going in that location? I don't think it should be too hard, but you could I think you could probably guess it. I love getting window deletes in. It's always fun to finally start seeing this flush out. And if anyone didn't guess what's actually there, you can guess down in the comments of what you think we're gonna be putting right here in the back. But I think you're gonna be able to guess. It's not that difficult. But the next thing was this sheet metal patch. The AC condenser used to be here and I wanted to block it off. So I had to install this little sheet metal piece, get it all blocked off so that we can, once again, get ready for paint because the paint cans are actually sitting right there. And oh man, I wish I could show you the color. I did a test spot right behind me, but not yet.
I was getting a shot of you on your notepad, like at your desk.
Oh yeah. So this is where I edit my videos and we design our buses. No, I'm trying to patch this in actually. So trying to figure out the measurements and how we want to do it.
See, most people you pay them to not be under a bus. Mike, you'd have to pay. Oh wait, you got that backwards.
That is backwards, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to pay me to go under a bus. I'll do that for free. The first task for me to get this thing completely sheet metaled off is I need to figure out my depth and then my back angle. Because if you ever look at sheet metal and different buses and stuff, you'll notice that there's like a flange here that the sheet metal's bent. And the reason why it's bent is because it gives it strength on that bottom edge. So what I'm gonna have to do is take this piece of sheet metal right here, cut it to my dimensions, make the angle on the bottom, and then I can rivet it back in to the top and then rivet it into the angle, and then we can get a nice flat piece here and patch that off so that we can get ready for painting. So I gotta get some metal cutting to go and get this piece in. I'm just about to get the bend put in this because I got to do a 1" 90, and I don't have a steel press or a sheet metal bender, so I got to do it by hand. And in the last video, I know a lot of people were asking, you know, why I'm hammering and you know, tin knocking essentially these sheet metal pieces in place. That's simply because that's all the tools that I have available to me right now. So I'm gonna do it again, but kind of explain exactly why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it, just so that if anyone out there is like me and doesn't have big sheet metal tools, here's a way you can do it in your backyard and you're gonna get a pretty good result. It's not gonna be super clean, but it's gonna be pretty good. So the first thing that I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna scar the back with a grinder blade. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a slight scar in the back edge right here, so that when I take this piece off, let me just pull it off real quick. When I take it off, you can see that there's a slight scar that's 1 inch. So now that's gonna give me the ability to kind of get this to bend up, and it's gonna bend a lot easier than if I just left it without the scar, because then I'm just manually doing it. This is also gonna be able to give me a much harder 90-degree bend. If I didn't do this, it's gonna be more of a curve, and I don't want a curve. I want as much of a 90 as I can. So this is gonna help me do that in a manual way. Few minutes of hammering, we got ourselves a pretty good right angle. I can still clean it up a good bit by taking a few more swings at it with the 1x1, but pretty much, you know, I'd say I'm pretty happy with that, and that piece will eventually go right into that slot where the AC unit used to be and patch it right on off. So this is the start to the patch. Let's keep moving on. Hammering, I'd say we got ourselves a pretty good bend. I mean, I could still probably clean it up a little bit, but I mean, for using a hammer and a 1x1, I'm pretty happy with it. So at this point now, I got to start kind of getting more of the custom fit it on over there and see how it does. And with inboard, so the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I might be putting a storage box here later in the future. So I don't want to do too much of like a body patch system, because I might possibly be cutting it out. So I want to do like a good patch, but a replaceable one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up drilling through and riveting this piece in. Ooh. That really hurt. Ow, that really hurt. Nothing. I dropped it. And on the inside, you really can't see it, but that 90-degree bend we put in will sit right here on the back flange, and then I'll put a rivet in that as well to kind of sure it all up, and it will kind of be a pretty strong patch in terms of the angles that are going to give the sheet metal strength, and then riveting it into the existing structure. We're going to be good to go. But here's your first look of kind of what it's going to. This is going to be pretty much the finished look of it, and it's all sturdy and back in one piece. So I think we're good to go on this one and moving on to the next task. But now that we got the sheet metal in, we got the AC thing blocked off, the next thing on my list just about 2 days ago was actually to put the max fan in. I wanted to put the max fan in now because when we spray foam, I will tape it off and we'll put some furring strips around it for framing. So I wanted to make sure that we got that in and waterproofed before we moved forward. So max fan's installed. Doesn't work, no power, but looks good. Now that the side AC patch is in, the next job, I want to install the Fantastic fan. I'm putting a Fantastic fan up here. If you watched my previous video, you saw me patch off these skylights because they're like 26 by 26 inch openings, and the max fan is 14 by 14. So we sheet metaled it off, made it all secure, made it all structurally good, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back up and center a 14 by 14 hole, because right there, we'll put it like right over the kitchen and like living area, which is probably a good spot to have an exhaust fan, just in case, you know, I mess up cooking one day. You can just suck all the air right on out. So I think the next task is we're gonna be putting this guy in. to share this thought because, you know, I've been thinking it. When you're doing max fans, anything on your roof, think about the placement. And there's two types of placement that you want to think about. One, where you put it on the roof. I'm putting it center into this old skylight location, but by doing that, I am then forcing myself to have to figure out where I'm gonna end up putting my solar panels. So if we were to look at the roof in like a flat out profile, I have around the max fan in the front, so like this whole area to put solar panels, and then back there I'm actually gonna be putting an 8x8 deck. So I have a deck, solar panels, and then a max fan in the center. And that's kind of like maximizing my roof space in terms of what I could possibly do up here. But depending on what size panels you're getting, or depending on what size deck you might be putting on, you gotta make sure it all fits before you start drilling holes. So if we're in the inside of the bus, there's the hole that was up top. So we're gonna be putting it right about here, which in my bus is going to end up being into the kitchen and kind of living area. So this is gonna be centered over the living space, which is gonna allow for good ventilation when I'm cooking, good ventilation when I'm just hanging out. But here's some things you wanna think about when doing that. So I'm centering it in the bus, and my bus is 7'6" wide, which means I have, what, 3.5 feet, you know, just over of middle room. But if I'm putting a kitchen right here, maybe I wanna put upper cabinets. Upper cabinets are gonna be probably 15 to 18 inches deep, depending on how you're building them, what you're doing, if you're making them custom. But 18 inches is gonna bring me out to about here, which is not much room from where my max fan is. So when I'm doing this, I'm thinking in the back of my head, if I'm gonna put this cabinet in, I've gotta mold the cabinet and scribe it to the roof. I've gotta put my ceiling in, and then I still wanna be able to mold out and make sure that the max fan has enough space here so that I'm not gonna intrude on either one or the other. So all this to say that if you're designing the inside space, just remember that the inside space is going to affect your outside space in terms of where you can place things and what's it gonna look like in the, you know, the end result. So fan right here, centered on the entire frame. So when you walk into my bus, the max fan is gonna be centered right down to a wall that's in the back, and everything's gonna look really clean. But these are little things that you can start doing now to start thinking about how to design your bus later that could really just, the little details that really change everything. So think about your placements before you put a hole in. The max fan is officially in, all the screws are down. The one thing that I will have to do that I'm not doing in this video is I ordered some lap sealant online. It got delayed, so it's not here yet, but eventually what I'll have to do is I'm gonna be putting some lap sealant, self-leveling sealant on all the screws and around the beaded edge so that we can get a full water seal. So this isn't 100% done just yet, but it's done for today, and we're gonna move on to the next task and kind of get on done with this. And that brings us to like the final thing of the day. The paint. The color that is in here is going to be the color that will pretty much end up on this school bus and is gonna look pretty awesome. We did do some test painting, so I'm gonna show some clips of that. But at the end of the day, I just want to start off with saying thanks for watching this video, thanks for supporting the channel, and always coming back to see what we do with this bus build. But, you know, we're gonna get painted into this bus, and I'll see you in the next episode. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Rainstorm.
Oh, Rainstorm was the one that I thought I wanted.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, Christina.
Oh my god.
Oh no, not there.
Oh my gosh, first paint on the bus.
Whoa. That's pretty.
That is a pretty color. That might dry.